אני ליטבק, אני חוסר, אני ברסלב, אני ספרדי, אבל כולנו בני המלך, כולם אחים, אחים אהובים. אני ליטבק, אני חוסר, אני ברסלב, רבנו, אני ספרדי, אבל כולנו בני המלך, כולם אחים, אחים אהובים. איי איי איי, הנה מה טוב, מה נועים, איי איי איי, שבט אחים, אחים גם ביחד, איי 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 איי, הנה מה טוב, מה נועים, איי איי איי, שבט אחים, אחים גם ביחד, כולנו בני ישראל, כולנו נויצנים טועים דלקל, איי איי איי, הנה מה טוב, מה נועים, איי איי איי, שבט אחים, אחים גם יחד, איי איי איי, הנה מה טוב, מה נועים, איי איי איי, שבט אחים, אחים גם יחד. אני ליטבק. Anybody here a Chusik? Anybody here Breslev? Anybody here Svaradi? אבל כולנו בני המלך, כולם אחים, אחים אהובים. Let's try some other Yidden, you ready? אני יקי, אני תימני, אני לבביץ', אני ציוני, אבל כולנו בני המלך, כולם אחים, אחים אהובים. Now you're gonna praise the Lord. איי איי איי, הנה מה טוב, מה נועים, איי איי איי, שבט אחים, אחים גם יחד, אוי אוי אוי, הנה מה טוב, מה נועים, איי איי איי, שבט אחים, heilige Rebbe, אחים גם יחד, איי איי איי, הנה מה טוב, מה נועים, איי איי איי, שבט אחים, אחים. Heilige Achim, my holy brothers, Higam Yom Ochad.
Going into the Kodesh HaKadoshim, and we know that before he would walk in, he spent 7 days in isolation. Shivas Yamim Kodem Yom HaKippurim, they would put him in the Lishkas Parhedrin. And the Gemara asks a very simple question. This Lishka, this room that he spent 7 days in quarantine before going into the Kodesh HaKadoshim, away from his wife, away from his family, away from his friends, away from his shul, away from his community, does this require a mezuzah? And the Gemara says it does. It does because Shemer Yomru Chabush Bebeis Asurim. If we don't have a mezuzah there, then people will think it's like a prison. So I'm thinking to myself, how does a mezuzah transform an environment from looking like a prison to looking like something that represents the authentic sense of ambition and aspiration and spirituality that really permeates the environment within which the Kohen Gadol finds himself in anticipation of Yom Kippurim. And I was thinking that this is a mitzvah that even though we don't get to go to shul, and we're not going to yeshiva, and we're not going to the beis medrash, you know that those environments are not chayiv in mezuzah. We have mezuzahs there because we eat and we fresh and we sleep and we, during the rabbi's sermons, that's mechayiv in a mezuzah, although on Sukkot I hold it's also to sleep in the rabbi's sermon because you're outside the sukkah, but you're a mitzdayer, so maybe you're butter. It's a whole deal. But the point is that we have mezuzahs in our homes. And I think there are 4 lessons from the mezuzah that relates to chizuk for coronavirus. Number 1 lesson we get from mezuzah is that things need structure. Things need structure. You only put a mezuzah up when there is structure. You don't just randomly post iconic symbols and representations of the Sefer Torah and of our faith throughout your home. They require a certain mashkof, you require a certain sense of structure. And in order to persevere through this environment, it's so important. That's what we've tried to get to each other, to get to our chevra, a schedule, a plan. And even when the plan goes off, to stop and replan. I keep telling the people in my shul, it's okay if for the last 6 or 8 weeks, you didn't have a Dvar Torah at your Shabbos table. That's okay. You can start something new. We just started something new at our Shabbos table. We started Pirkei Avos.
Help me to take this feeling of godless and nefesh, and help me to make it something that it can be Adshe Techparts, that I should engrave it into my heart, remind me of how it was, because this is going to pass any day, Mitzvah Hashem, this time, this craziness, and remind me. Ba Yochai Moshev Tov Yeshavta. You ever think, what does that mean? Ba Yochai Moshev Tov Yeshavta? When he was in the cave, Moshev Tov Yeshavta. That was a good place to live. That was a good time. Moshev Tov Yeshavta. But it says. Yom Shanasta, Yom Shabarachta, Shom Kanisa, Hoidcha V'Hadarach. Davke, in that time of your life, where you were in a cave, where you were isolated, where you were apart, where you were in darkness, where you were in dirt up to your neck, where you were living like that, it was the craziest life, running away from Yom Shabarachta, Yom Shanasta, Yom Shabarachta, running away from people, running away from the whole world. Davke, Shom Kanisa, you and I still have a few minutes left of this whole craziness to be kaina sham kanisa hoidcha v'hadara Moshev Tov Yeshavta. I've been telling my chevra and whoever listens to anything that I've been saying these last weeks, I've been screaming to everybody, don't fall into that negativity where you have these people that are saying you can't be a Jew unless you violate the Department of Health and you go down in someplace in a minyan and endangering somebody else's life and making fun of the government. What are you talking about? You're in the cave right now? It says by Rabbi Shimon, Moshev Tov Yeshavta. The Baal Shem Tov says, Sumei Rava, the Baal says, Sumei Rava, say Tov. Don't look at the Ra of this. Try to dig deep and see the Tov of what you're in right now. And then ask Hashem to help you to carry this Tov, that I'm not some sort of a mindless amoeba that's going to go and daven with other people, even though I'm going to get them sick and I'm going to get sick and go home and make other people sick, to the grocery, other people sick, like some mishuggah. I'm a shigana. Don't give me shigana. No, Hashem put me right here now. Moshev Tov Yeshavti. Zemoshav Tov. Zemoshav Tov. Davening, family, learning. Moshev Tov Yeshavti. So am I supposed to stay in the cave? No. Rabbi Shimon went out the second time. Sumi Maraschem, he went out, and what did he do? He went right away to Tveria, Israel Iskin Mills. He went to fix up the city of Tveria to help to remove the shveikas of Tumas Meis by Tveria. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai went out, he became Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. You and I have to come out from the cave, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Not the same small people that went in. We have to come out bigger people that went in. And how should I become bigger with such a hard time? It's hard. Stop crashing and crying about hard. Is it sad people died? Terrible. People are sick, terrible. Daven for them, davening. But Shomeira and Vasei Tov. The other side of the heart, laughing and happy, the children, the Einiklef. And when we get out of all of this, the hugs are going to be real hugs. The smiles are going to be real smiles. The davening is going to be real davening. I'm going to learn that there's Taka Rabban Shalom in the world. I never thought that he existed in the world. I only knew that he existed in the Sefer. I didn't know that he actually is alive. And now I'm going to be with him in the world. Everything's different. My learning's going to be a shmak. Everything's if we look at it in such a positive way of lahaze gedolim haktan. That's all. That's our job.
We're already halfway through Elul. I've got 25 days left. What am I aiming for Yom Kippur? What do I want to be arriving at? Or maybe is setting a goal not really the right way to approach it in the first place?
Yeah, look, I think part of the beauty of this period of years is that it's a time of setting goals. It's interesting. If we as a group now sat down and we wrote what our goals are, meaning where do we want to go, and we really got in touch with where we want to be next year at this time, and we had the internal kind of self-examination to answer the three questions that Yaakov prepares his army for. Who am I? Where am I going? What am I going to do with what I have? That would be a good yardstick in terms of what we're looking for. One of my favorite thoughts about the importance of goal setting in the process of Shuah, in the process of change, is what Michael Josephson, the head of the Center for Ethics in California, said. He said, here's how you have to live your life. He says, imagine yourself as a fly on the wall at your own funeral after you've lived 120 years, a long, productive life. And think, as you're being eulogized by whoever's giving your eulogy, of the three main ways that you want to be remembered at the end of your life. He says, get in touch with the three ways you want to be remembered. And then he says, live life backwards. Live life backwards. Keep our eye on the ball. Where are we going? Where are we going short term and long term? But in terms of pace of change, what the psychology research shows, as well as a more careful reading of various Jewish sources, is that it's generally better to have gradual change, change that is part of an internal slow process of development, generally probably is more enduring, and we do better with it. We had a doctoral student who did her doctorate at Azrieli at Yeshiva, and she looked at a large group of Balei Tshuva and compared them to large groups, 250 Balei Tshuva, their children, and then compared them to a group of people who were from birth, observant from birth, to see what are some of the differences between the two of them. And she actually found that pretty much the same thing that made for healthy parenting in any group is what made for healthy parenting in both groups. Balance between love and limits, flexibility, really being there for your kids, and being able to give a consistent message in terms of parents. All that stuff is very important. But one of the main findings that she had in her dissertation, she's now an esteemed professor in the city university system, but one of the main findings that she had was that in the group of Balei Tshuva, the more gradual their process of change, the more time they had to gradually pull themselves in, the better they did.
Ahanti Kishma Adonai Adonai He tells no. Etalech lifnei Adonai Biatzot Achayim He'emanti ki adaber Ani aniti me'od Ani amarti bechavzi Oy kol adam kozeh Ashiv l'Adonai Kol tan lo mi'alai Kol Yeshuot asah Ahu v'shem Adonai Nid'arai l'Adonai Ashalem Negdana lecho amo Yakar B'nei Adonai Hamam Chasida Oy Anda Adonai Ki Ani Adecha Ani Adecha Ben Amotecha Ani Adecha Ben Amotecha Pita Talmoshe Ra Licha Etvat Seva Toda Uv'shem Adonai Ekra Nid'arai Adonai Ashalem Negda Nalechol Amor Nechatztu Beit Adonai B'tovei Yerushalayim B'tovei Yerushalayim Hallelujah. Adonai, Adonai, Adonai,
This Mizmor is incredible Mizmor of hope, of looking to the future. Many have the practice of reciting, of singing this Mizmor, Mizmor LeDavid, at Shalosh Shudas, at the third meal of Shabbos. Why? Because that is the time of Ratzon. It's the time of us wanting and connecting to Hashem just before the beginning of the new week. That's why Shalosh Shudas is so powerful. And that's why this moment is so powerful, because it's just at the beginning, just before we accept upon ourselves the incredible magical spiritual quality of this gift of Yom HaAtzmaut. And ultimately, this Mizmor is about HaKadosh Baruch Hu, God is our shepherd. And it's not just a shepherd in a theoretical sense. We feel and we know that shepherd. We know this shepherd who is a part of our lives during the beautiful times, during the expansive times when we're out and we're able to be together physically. And we know that shepherd right now who is with us in our homes, in our lives, even during the challenging times. This Mizmor is going to transition us from the difficult, the reflective of Yom HaZikaron to the future, to the beginning of Yom HaAtzmaut.
Why do we make such a holiday for Yom HaAtzmaut? Why do we make such a big celebration? Of course, it's a great miracle. But we're not in the business in our religion and our tradition of making holidays for every miracle that occurs to the Jewish people. Yet we find, though, two other holidays where we do make such celebrations. Hanukkah and Purim. Hanukkah and Purim are not miracles. They're not just the miracles. There is something unique about Hanukkah and Purim as well. Hanukkah and Purim are both about renewal of our covenant, of our bris with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The story of Purim is more than just the Jews were about to be killed. It was about a nation that arose in Shushan, that didn't know about Israel, that was comfortable in Persia. In comes Haman and easily gets the opportunity to wipe out the Jews, and it's possible, suggests Moshe Lichtenstein, that the Jews looked around and said, you know what? It was a good run. We had a good run, but after seeing what's over, maybe we lost, maybe we're done, maybe HaKadosh Baruch Hu has abandoned us. There was utter hopelessness. So what happens? Mordechai and Esther declare to the Jewish people, absolutely not. We want to reinstate our bris with you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And then there's Hanukkah. Not just that the Jews had to fight a battle, but there was the first time in their history that they were socially and culturally assimilated. They were over-inundated with the other cultures, and perhaps they looked around when they saw that the Greeks were beating them up, and they said, you know what? We're done. It was a good run. We had a nice relation with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And once again, Matisyo comes in, the Jews are saved, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu shows them with a miracle that he's still there. And throughout Jewish history, whenever there were moments that presented threats to the Jewish people, whatever those threats looked like, whatever they meant throughout Jewish history, we looked back to Hanukkah and Purim to tell us, to rely that we reaffirmed our bris. But then something happened. The 20th century witnessed an event that threw our history and our precedents and our earlier affirmations into question. For the first time since Hanukkah, the Jews thought after the Holocaust, maybe where was HaKadosh Baruch Hu? And this is the gift of Hakamas Medina. Moshe Lichtenstein says so powerfully that just as we reinstated our bris during Purim and during Hanukkah, the state of Israel was HaKadosh Baruch Hu telling the Jews that I'm still here. Because the Shoah was the sense of where was HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Maybe our time had run out. How else to explain the utter evil, the destruction, Jewish towns, communities wiped out? How else to explain how one man could unite a nation to treat another nation as such subhuman and animals? How to explain Auschwitz and Bergen-Belsen, Majdanek? And it seemed that HaKadosh Baruch Hu had abandoned us, and out of absolute nowhere comes this gift of the land of Israel and the state of Israel. And not only did the survivors go on to rebuild, they went back to rebuild the land of Israel. They went back, some of the fallen of Kfar Etzion were survivors of the ghettos. It's a renewal of our covenant. That's what Yom HaAtzmaut is. Yom HaAtzmaut is much more than just an amazing, unbelievable miracle from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's telling us and Hashem showing us that I'm still here. It's living through the Shoah and coming out with stronger emunah to be in God's land, to honor the soldiers that have fallen, to praise the soldiers that are fighting now. And that's what we do on Yom HaAtzmaut. It is a message about not just Halal, but to reaffirm our relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
everyone join me, please. We're gonna dance to cover the chillin', to cover that Tana, to cover the India Simcha. I want to hear everyone. I want to see everyone. I want to see everyone dancing. Oh, I did it, la. Thank you, Hashem. I did it, la. Thank you, Hashem. I did it, la. Thank you, Hashem. Thank you, Hashem. Oh, I did it, la. Thank you, Hashem. I did it, la. Thank you, Hashem. Oh, I do, Hashem. Thank you, Hashem. Thank you, Hashem. Take it away, Karish, over there. Thank you, Hashem. Thank you, Hashem. Thank you, Hashem. Thank you, Hashem. תודה רבה לך, השם יתברך. 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 Thank you, Hashem. Спасибо Богу. Спасибо Богу. Спасибо Богу. Thank you, Hashem. One more time, you guys. Let's go. Thank you, Hashem. Let's try it again, Chavre. Thank you, Hashem. Thank you, Hashem. Thank you, Rabbi.